Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Let me start by welcoming each one of you to this important event, the first in a series of Dawah conferences that has been commissioned by the IPCI, South Africa, led by our Emir, Dr. Khan. He decided that he must dedicate a conference, a series of conferences in memory of our Marhoom, Dr. Sheikh Ahmed Deedat, who dedicated his entire life to the work of spreading Islam across the earth. So once again, I welcome you to this important event. It's a Dawah conference that is going to spark that fire and that enthusiasm that has been waning for a number of decades since the passing of our eminent scholar, Marhoom Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. Today, I'll start by inviting our Imam, Mahmoud Sahan from the Institute from Egypt to give us Qiraat for this morning. Before we start anything else, we need a recitation from the Holy Quran by Sheikh Mahmoud Sahan. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. يا مفهوم السلام. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافها يا عين صاد. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك رب شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله رب رضيا يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاث ليال سويا فخرج على قومه من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا يا يحيى خذ الكتاب بقوة وآتيناه الحكم صبيا وحنانا من لدنا وزكاة وكان تقيا وبرا بوالديه ولم يكن جبارا عصيا وسلام عليه يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا. جزاكم الله خيرا.
Jazakallah khaira, Brother Imam Brother Imam Mahmoud Sahan, for the wonderful recitation of the Holy Quran. I'll begin by introducing you to the Dawah Conference. Why Dawah Conference 2022? This has been put in place by our Board of Trustees of IPCI to accord us an opportunity to interact with our scholars, those who have been spreading Islam on the continent with the light of Islam. So we have seen that since the passing of our eminent scholar, Sheikh Ahmed Deedat, we haven't had an opportunity to gather on an annual basis to exchange information, to equip ourselves with skills about Islam. And our generation, our ummah is suffering because we are not really doing dawah to invite people to the light of Islam. So we embraced Islam, but over the years, we have just kept that light of Islam to ourselves, which is counterproductive, it's self-defeating. So the leadership of IPCI decided to come up with a Dawah conference and has brought together a number of scholars, leading scholars on Islam and eminent da'i who are coming to share information about Dawah, the challenges that the Dawah movement has experienced over the years, and setting up strategies. The IPCI today will be coming up with strategies for the propagation of Islam, for the invitation of Islam, for the invitation of our brothers who are outside Islam to come and join us in the fold of Islam. Most of us were born outside Islam. Most of us sitting here, each one of us can attest to the fact that you and I were not Muslims. We're not born in a Muslim family. But we are here today because of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The time came for us to embrace the light of Islam, and we are lucky that we are among those who embrace the truth. We need to share that truth with others who are outside Islam so that they can also come and embrace Islam. So there are a number of objectives that have been put by the IPCI 2022 Dawah conference, so that after this conference, we must come up with an action plan that is going to put us as soldiers of Islam out there. We go out, we go back to our various communities armed and equipped with tools. Here today, we are going to impart toolboxes that each one of us will carry back home, and we will use in the invitation of our brothers and sisters who are outside Islam, who are non-believers, to come and embrace the light of Islam. So one of the objectives is coming up with an action plan. We need to come up with an action plan today before we go back to our various institutions and communities. Secondly, we need to identify the ailment. We need to do a diagnosis and find out the real problem that has been hampering the work of Dawah in South Africa. And through that diagnosis, we'll come up with the exact solution. If it is in terms of mismanagement of resources, Dawah resources, we need to pinpoint that so that our brothers who are engaged in the work of Dawah can benefit from the insights that are going to be shared here today. In addition to that, we need to charge each one of us as an emissary, as an ambassador, as a fighter, not in a bad way, but in terms of example, the example that our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left for us. He managed to invite people to Islam through his exemplary character. And that's what we have always overlooked. As the Ummah today, We think we can invite people through coercion, through boasting, because we have knowledge. We are ulema, so we think we can boast of our knowledge, and in so doing, we think we can invite people by bragging about the qualifications that we have. It's not about the qualifications that you have. Most eminent da'is in the world today are not scholars, but they have the correct toolbox that they use in terms of approaching those who are outside. Humility was one of the qualities of our beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you humble yourself in your community, you leave an example, a true example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You are going to invite people to the fold of Islam, because people are going to look through you, not what you say. You can say 1,000 words, but at the end of the day, people will still look at you as a Muslim and see your example. They will follow your example. So humility. And also, if you do not understand some of the issues around Islam, you have to show, you have to say it, that you do not have that knowledge, but you will be able to invite a scholar who is a specialist in that topic to address those concerns. So it's not about you having all the knowledge. It's not about you having all the knowledge. It's about you understanding your mission as a da'i, so that you can invite other scholars who are specialists in those fields to help you with the knowledge that you can pass on to the next brother who is outside Islam. So humility, knowledge is important, but not 100%. You need to network with the ulemas who are specialists so that they can help you address the concerns that are being raised. On top of that, we have seen what has happened in the world globally over the past 2 years. There are a number of challenges that the Muslim Ummah is facing across the globe. These challenges are to do with Islamophobia. Islamophobia is rising again, and so fiercely, because now it's across all sectors. Wherever you find yourself, you're going to be confronted with the challenge of Islamophobia. So if you have a child who is going to school, she is going to be tormented, she's going to be harassed by the mere fact that she's wearing parda or she's a Muslim. If you at the workplace, your boss might not like the idea that you are in parda, or you're exhibiting an example of, you live that Muslim life. You want to have time to perform salah. There are a number of challenges that we are facing. So as Dari, as Duat, people who are engaged in the mission of spreading Islam, we need to come up with tools. We need to come up with tools that will help us to navigate those challenges. How do we navigate the challenge of Islamophobia? All over the world, Ukraine, you have seen how our brothers have been treated in Ukraine. Those who were caught in the middle of the conflict, when they were trying to flee the country, the region, most countries shut their doors to Muslims. So we need to come up with strategies that will enable us to align ourselves to the correct tools and to correct knowledge that will enable us to conquer our enemies. We are not going to use guns. We are not going to use sophisticated weapons. We can use our example as Muslims, the best example, the legacy that was left behind by our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to spread the message of truth, which is Islam. So today is not my day. As I've already said, today is not my day. Today I'm here standing as Director of Ceremonies to introduce our eminent scholars of Islam who have dedicated their lives to the work of spreading the truth. And one of these elders who has really crisscrossed the country, crisscrossed the continent, crisscrossed the world with the message of Islam is our eminent Professor Suleiman Dango, who is among us today. He is a prolific author. He has authored a number of books on Islam. He has authored a number of papers on Islam. Most of these are accessible online. Those of us who are doing research on Islam, please, you are welcome to access his various resources that are there online. You just type in his name, Professor Suleiman Dango, you'll be able to get a list of all his publications on Islam, the challenges that the Ummah has faced over the years. And it is important that as the youth, the future leaders of Islam, we need to engage in the exercise of research. Go to the original sources. Don't just talk about Islam when you are not well equipped with knowledge. The resources are there. Our eminent scholars have devoted their lives publishing so that the future leaders of Islam can access these resources in the comfort of their homes. So I urge you today to give an attentive ear to our eminent scholar, Professor Suleiman Dango. Welcome to the stage, sir. The floor is yours. As he walks into the mic, please, those of you who are taking notes, we will display his, I think we will not display his speech, but you are welcome to interact with him at a later stage where he can equip you with more resources on his paper today. His paper is entitled Islam in South Africa, Origins, Politics, yeah, that's the title of his paper. It's Islam in South Africa, Origins, Politics, Education, Language, Religion. Welcome and join us in this interaction.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nahmadu wa nasalli ala Rasulil Kareem, amma ba'd. Respected MC, ulama, shayukh, and respected brothers and sisters in Islam. Our MC has spoken about somebody I don't recognize. I think it's mistaken me. I don't know who he's talking about, but in any case, I'm so glad to be here. It's an honor for me to be present today and to speak to you. Now, I'm going to just share some information with you. But there is a lot I don't know, but the little that I know, I will share with you, inshallah. But I'm going to start with a quote from Mullah Nasruddin. Probably many of you have not heard of him. He's also known as Hoja in the Arab world. There are lots of books. If you're interested, you just type Mullah Nasruddin and you can read his words of wisdom. Now, when you read them, they sound very amusing, and but they're very witty. But each one has a message. And I'll just start with one of them. One day, people saw Mullah Nasruddin frantically looking for something. It was under a lampshade, a street light rather. And they said, Mullah, did you lose something? He said, yes, I lost my watch. So they said, can we help you to look for it? He said, yes, please. And so we started looking for it. And after a while, they said, but Mullah, we can't find your watch. Are you absolutely sure that you lost it here? And he said, well, actually, no, I lost it there. And he pointed to a place that was very dark. And they said that Mullah doesn't make sense. If you lost it there, why are you looking for it here? He said, because it's too dark, you can't see anything there. Now, I want you to work out the wisdom of this particular word of Mullah Nasruddin. Okay, I'm going to speak to you about Islam in South Africa. I'll start with the origins. How many of you know when Islam arrived in South Africa? Let's see. How many of you know? Yes. How many years? Yes. I can't hear you. Somebody got a mic there?
I'm not sure. I think it's the 17 to 1800s, the Cape Malay, the
In
Malays.
the 17th century. Yeah, you're right.
18th.
You're right. What actually happened is the Europeans, that means the Dutch and the British and the Danes and the Portuguese, were traveling around the Cape. There was no Suez Canal. They wanted to go to India and Ceylon and Indonesia. So they couldn't pass through Egypt through the Suez Canal. They had to pass through Africa. And it was, remember those days, it was a very long trip. It took months and months. So they needed to stop somewhere to get fresh water, to get meat, fruits and vegetables and so on. So they stopped at Cape, what's called Cape of Good Hope, Cape de Goede Hoop. And there they established what they call a refreshment station. So they would stop there for a while, get fresh water, and of course they robbed the poor Khoisan who were living there. I remember when I was a kid, they showed us this movie about Jan van Riebeeck landing at the Cape and they were talking to the Khoisan. And the Khoisan are simple nomadic people. And then they would show them a mirror. And the Khoisan would be very impressed. They've never seen a mirror like that. And they would say, do you want a mirror? He said, yes. Give us one sheep. Okay. Say they robbed people right from the day they landed here. So then they decided they needed fruit and vegetable. Now the Khoisan were nomadic people, they're moving around and so on. So they needed labor. Where did they get the labor from? The Dutch had colonized parts of India, the western coast of India, and some of the islands in Indonesia. So they captured people and brought them as slaves. So the first Muslims were brought to the Cape were slaves from India and from Indonesia. They also brought slaves from East Africa and West Africa, but they were not Muslim. So that was in the 17th century. They also brought prisoners from Indonesia. Some of the prisoners had committed certain crimes and others were actually political prisoners. So they brought them down as well. Okay, so you had slaves, you had prisoners, and the third category were political exiles. Now, when the Dutch started colonizing the Indonesian islands, some of the people began to resist the colonization. They began to fight. One of them was Sheikh Yusuf of Makassar. He joined the king, Agung, and they began to resist the Dutch occupation. And so they arrested him, some others. You know, the first person was placed on Robben Island was a Muslim, Raja Tambora, king. And his grave is still there on Robben Island. So they were brought down to the Cape. So that was, let's say, the first phase. The second phase was when was the second phase? Who was brought next? Yes, from India, okay. That was now British colonization. So in the Cape we had Dutch. When the British colonized Natal, they settled here and then they wanted to grow sugarcane. But they found that the Indians were good farmers. So they brought them here as indentured laborers, which means on contract. Now, very few Muslims, maybe about 8%. But after them, the traders came, the Muslim traders, mainly from the Gujarat area of India, because that was a trading place. And 80% of them were Muslim. So they landed here. And then when they discovered gold and the Witwatersrand, who was brought here? Come on, let's see. From Africa, which country? No one knows? Malawi. Malawians were brought to work on the gold mines, and then some of them were sent to the Eastern Transvaal, which is now known as Mpumalanga, to work on the citrus farms. So they've been here for a long time. Okay, so this was the situation. That's the origins of the Muslims. So they're from Indonesia, from Africa, from Malawi. Yes, and another group. Another group that's known as the Zanzibaris, although they are not Zanzibaris. They're actually from northern Mozambique. And what happens, they were on a ship, they were being taken as slaves. But by that time, slavery had been abolished, 1834, I think. So the British needed people to work here on the docks in Durban. So they brought the so-called Zanzibaris to Durban, and they began to work on the docks. Okay, so you see the different types of people who were brought to this country by the Dutch and the British as well. Okay. Next, now I want to talk about politics. Now, when the Muslims arrived here in Natal, the traders, the business people, began to challenge the British business people. So the British were very upset, and they wanted to send all these business traders back to India. Okay, so that was the first problem. But then one Muslim trader in Durban had a problem with one Muslim trader in Pretoria, right? So Muslims have been fighting throughout history. And so he brought down Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi was brought to South Africa, not by the Hindus, by the Muslims, to fight for one Muslim against another Muslim. So that's how he landed up here. So they told Mahatma Gandhi, look, here, we have a problem, because he was a lawyer, that we have a problem with the British. Can you help us? He said, okay. Now, why they brought him is because Gandhi also comes from Gujarat. So these traders, some of them knew him personally. That's why they called him here. So you see, the resistance was started by the Muslims here in Natal. And 1895, the Natal Indian Congress was established in the home of a Muslim. And if you look at the first presidents and secretaries of the Natal Indian Congress, they're all Muslims. So the Natal Indian Congress was established before the African National Congress. Okay, ANC was established in 1912. So even before the Pan-African Congress. So NIC, and then of course in the Transvaal, we had the Transvaal Indian Congress. And at the Cape, there was a Dr. Abdul Rahman who had studied in Scotland. He was the first black doctor in the country. He established the African People's Organization. That was 1904. So you can see that the Muslims established the organization even before the ANC and the PAC. And I think it's very important for us to know that. Then we find a number of individuals who joined the ANC. Later on, they joined the PAC. And this street here, what is the street known as when you came here, the main road? Come on, what's it called? Not Queen Street, the other one. I can't hear. Yusuf Dadu, because he is one of the most prominent members of the ANC. He was in exile. So you see how they've honored him, right? So you had Maulvi Kachalia and others. They were very prominent members of the ANC. They were great thinkers as well. And of course, PAC, I would say that the center was Cape Town. Imam Marhoom, who was killed in custody. The case is still carrying on. They're trying to find out the truth, how he died. So I would say the Muslims at the Cape were more in support of the PAC than elsewhere. Then we find in the 1980s, a number of Muslims decided to establish organizations. So they would draw Muslims into it, and they would start with resistance from a Muslim perspective. So you had Call of Islam. And in Call of Islam, you had most prominent people was Ibrahim Rasool, who became the ambassador in Washington. You had Muhammad Danga, who became the ambassador first in Syria and then in Libya. So the Call of Islam was very closely allied to the ANC. So you can see that after 94, when Call of Islam was dissolved, the leadership then became appointed by the ANC to become ambassadors and so on. The other organization that was established was the Qibla. The Qibla was very closely aligned to the Pan-African Congress, to the PAC. And Ahmed Kasim was the founder of Qibla. In fact, 2 weeks ago, there was a conference in Cape Town. I met him at the conference there. But the PAC, as you know, is now limited in size and so on. It's not so prominent. Okay, so we had this, and then of course you had Muslim Youth Movement and Muslim Student Association. And they also began to be critical of apartheid policies and so on, but they did not align themselves to any organization, to any political party. They remained independent, but they began to be critical. Then, but these were not Islamic parties, okay? These were what we call Islamic movement groups. Then we found establishment of several Islamic political parties. So you had in the Cape, you had the Islamic Party, you had the Africa Muslim Party, you had Africa Moral Party. All of them disappeared because they did not get any support from the Muslims. They eventually had Al-Jama'ah, or Khanif Hendricks. Well, he's the first Muslim to get into parliament. He's in parliament, okay? And I think Western Province Parliament also has a Muslim MP. So Islamic political parties have been established. As I said, the three disappeared. Only one is left now. Okay, turning now to the other subject, education. Now, at the beginning, the National Party government did not provide schools for Black people. And Black people included everyone who was not Black, was not white, which means Indians, coloreds, everybody else. So early on, the Muslims used to attend Christian schools everywhere, in Natal, at the Cape, in the Transvaal, and so on. But then what happened in the Cape is the Muslim parents were very worried because the missionary activity is very strong. And they said our children will become influenced. So we got to establish our own schools. So they started establishing what's called Muslim mission schools. Here in Natal, they established what's called state-aided schools. There were five state-aided schools. What a state-aided school meant was that they combine the school curriculum with the madrasa. So kids don't have to go to madrasa in the afternoon. So they just put it together in one curriculum. That was state-aided school. So the government state still paid the subsidy and all of that and the salary, but the people who taught the Islamic syllabus, they were paid by the community. That's how it operated. Now, of course, the new phase, again, Cape Town always gives a lead, right? The first Muslim or independent school was established in Cape Town. And now is known as Islamia College. After that, Natal, and then a Transvaal. Do you know how many Muslim independent schools are in the country today? Any idea? Any idea how many today? No? Something like 90. So it started just with a handful, and today there are more than 90 Muslim in most towns today in the country. There is a Muslim independent school. Okay, that's the schools. We also have Darul Ulooms all over, in Durban, in Johannesburg, Cape Town, and so on. Some of the, and of course, Newcastle was the first one established in the country, all right? And some of them are using Urdu medium, some are using English. I think Newcastle is English. At the Cape, some are using Arabic medium. And today, I believe 50% of the students in the Darul Ulooms are foreigners. Of course, we can think about all of the reasons what's happening here. 50% are foreigners in the Darul Ulooms. Then in the Cape, we also have two institutions who've got accreditation. That's IPSA and Medina Institute, which means that if you graduate from there, your degree is recognized. So your BA honors, you can go to university and do a postgrad So 2 of them are accredited. The other Darul Ulooms have a different type of accreditation, not the normal one that the universities have. All right. Then we come to the issue of language. How many languages are spoken, indigenous languages, sorry, in South Africa? How many languages? Anybody knows? How many languages? 35. 35 languages, okay? Now, how many are official languages? 11, right? The Sesotho, Setswana, Iswati, Sevenda, Tsonga, Afrikaans, English, Sindebele, Xhosa, and isiZulu. Okay, those are the languages which are recognized. Now, very interesting. There's one language which came recently, say from some African countries, which can be taken as an optional language in schools. Which language do you think that is? Swahili. Swahili can now be taken as an optional language in the schools. Alhamdulillah, it's an Islamic Muslim language, right? Which has now been recognized. Now, which is the language which is most commonly spoken in the country? Which one? Which one? Who says English? Let's see. How many of you say English? Okay, how many says isiZulu? You're right. The most common language in the country is isiZulu. It's about 23% of people speak isiZulu. And then it's a Xhosa. Okay, 16%. Then Afrikaans, 13.5. English is 10%. Okay, because remember the people in the Cape all speak Afrikaans. In fact, when a lot of the country towns in the Transvaal spoke Afrikaans because they dealt with Afrikaners, farmers and so on, right? When I was at school in Nigel, primary school, we spoke in Afrikaans. They weren't old people. So we grew up speaking Afrikaans in many of the towns. All right. Now, what has happened? South African Muslim, we're talking about South African Muslims. What languages do they speak? Let's see. What do South African Muslims, what languages do they speak? Anybody? Yeah. Urdu? English? Come on. Okay, they speak English, they speak Afrikaans, they speak Urdu, they speak Gujarati, they speak Memon, and they speak Malayu. That's the South African Muslim I'm talking about, right? And they speak Zulu. These are South African Muslim. But now with the immigrants, whole lot of languages, right? So now you're going to have Arabic. There, a few South Africans spoke Arabic, but now you'll see more and more Arabic here. And then you hear Persian, the Iranians here. We hear Pushtu. You have Bengali, all the Bangladeshis speak Bengali. You have Turkish schools now, more Malaysian and so on. And then from Africa, whole lot of languages like Wolof, Hausa, Yoruba, Sango, Makwa, and so on, Chichewa. They're now all in South Africa. Okay, the last one I'm going to go is religion, because that's the one, sometimes very dangerous to speak about it. But I'm not going to go into any controversy, just to give you some idea, and then maybe we can have some discussion or question and answer. Which are the country recognizes 5 major faiths? Anybody knows which are the 5? 5 major faiths are recognized. Christianity? Nobody has a mic here. I can't hear what he's saying. Christianity?
Judaism.
Yes. What else? Islam, yes. Hinduism, African, yeah, correct. All right, so it is Islam, it's Christianity, it's Judaism, Hinduism, and African religion. Right, so there are 5 which are recognized officially. The others, because they're too small, it's a question of numbers. Because they're too small, they don't recognize them specifically, but they will recognize them as other languages. Okay, so if you look on television, you will find programs. You know, there's an Islamic program, on TV. You know about it? There's a Muslim program on TV every Saturday morning. Anybody knows about it? Yeah, what's it called? You don't know there's a Muslim program on television every Saturday morning? You've never seen it? It's called An-Nur. You know about An-Nur, okay. We introduced that program in 1994. That time I was member of the SABC committee of the board. In 94, we introduced the program. We also introduced Islamic slot in all SABC radio stations. So we identified people who could speak all the different languages, and we had a slot, say half an hour, once a week. And I don't know whether it's carrying on. I don't know. But we introduced it a long while back. Now, here we have all the madhahib in this country. We have the Hanafi, we have the Shafi, mostly at the Cape, Hanafi is mostly here in Nachal and Gauteng, Transvaal. And now we also have Malikis, all these people coming from West and North Africa now. So Malikis, very few Hanbalis. And then we have a few Shia, so there's a Jafari. So all these madhahib are here. And then now we have Sufi tariqas. Now Sufi tariqas have been here right from the 17th century. From Indonesia, they came, also some from India and so on. And now we have from Africa. You know, the Senegalese are all divided into 2 tariqas. All the Senegalese. So they either belong to this one or that one. So a lot of people in Sudan belong to tariqas. People in Nigeria and so on. So you have a lot of Sufi tariqas. Some were existing before. Now we have additional ones. A lot of tariqas are here. Then, of course, we have the Morabitun. Morabitun, actually, this was a group in North Africa, in Morocco. They actually captured Spain. They ruled Spain for a while. And then they came to South Africa. Interestingly, it was introduced by an Englishman who passed away quite recently. And so there are people here from the townships and so on. I think some from overseas have come as well. And the Morabitun are there. I don't think it's a very big group, but they do exist. Now, we have theological bodies. Now, this is where the controversy, I'm not going to go into the controversy. We have a whole lot of theological bodies. Okay, so you have Jamiat al-Ulama here, you have the Darul Ihsan, the Sunni Jamiat. There you have Jamiat al-Ulama, there's Jusa in Gauteng. There is another one in the Dias, I don't know what they call themselves. At the Cape, we have most important is Muslim Judicial Council at Cape Town. Port Elizabeth, you have Majlis al-Ulama. But now we see that the African Muslims or Black Muslims have established their own in Soweto, right, recently. And they've already issued a fatwa on Lobola. What is it called? Anybody knows? This is a very, very recent, okay? It's a very recent development.
Gauteng Muslim Shura, I think.
Yeah, but you got the theological one now, the Fatwa Committee. Right, Gauteng Shura is there, correct. But in any case, so these are the madhahib which exist here. And as you can observe, unfortunately, there is a lot of competition. I'll just use the word competition between the different groups. Of course, a new one that came recently is the Wifaqul Ulama. which is quite close to the Masjid Ulama in the Western Cape. So I think this is briefly the history, the origins, the politics, the education, the languages, and religion. So yeah, I'm prepared to take questions or comments if you have any. Either you understood everything or you understood nothing. Okay, I'm just joking. All clear about it? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Yes.
I read your book many years ago, Islam in West Africa. I found it to be very interesting, and it's a book I think that will be invaluable to also teach the people in South Africa of the contribution of Black people to education, to civilization before colonization.
Okay, we're talking about contribution of Black people to education, decolonization. Yeah, of course.
To civilization.
Yeah,
Because
look,
of you, in your book, you spoke about the dynasties, the universities that were in East Africa, I mean, West Africa, Timbuktu, Mali.
are you talking about the booklet on West Africa? Yeah, okay, I
It's a
didn't
very small
mean.
booklet.
She's talking, I did a little booklet on Islam in West, East, Northeast, I can't remember the name. It was published by the IDM. In Africa, we had kingdoms, we had sultanates. One of the biggest one was a Sokoto Khilafat. It was a Khilafat, by the way. So stretching from Mali, and of course we had Timbuktu. People from different parts of the world used to come to Timbuktu to study about Islam, right? And Timbuktu had scholars who were not only authorities in what we call Islamic sciences, Quran, Hadith, Tafsir, but in mathematics, in geography, in physical science. All these subjects were taught in Mali, in Timbuktu, and people used to come there to study there in Timbuktu. Now, recently, even our South African government got involved to look at the manuscripts which are in Mali and to try to preserve the manuscripts and to translate the manuscripts so people know what was actually being taught them. So it is very important that in the past we've had Muslim sultanates and empires and so on. Mansa Musa was one of the wealthiest people in the world at the time. And when he went for Hajj, you know, he went with a whole troop for Hajj. And I think in Cairo, I'm trying to think what actually happened there. So he was very well known. If you just Google Mansa Musa, you'll see how much of wealth the man had. So the people were very wealthy and of course, highly knowledgeable. And of course, you also know that in Africa, the first university in Islam was established where? Come on. Which one? Which one?
Was it Egypt? Al-Azhar in Egypt, no?
Not Azhar. Yes, Kairouan. Kairouan was the first university. Azhar came later. So we had the first university. We had one of the greatest centers of learning, that was Timbuktu. And then of course Azhar as well. So I think we have been very proud of our history in Africa. And of course things went wrong. We don't know where it went wrong. But inshallah, with effort that we make, we can, and I think I must commend all of you, because if you are doing dawah, it means that you have Islam in your heart. It means you want to share this deen of Allah with those who don't have it. And it's something which the Quran actually asks us to do. That there be a group or band among you who will invite to what is good and so on, which actually means inviting people to Islam. And according to the ulama, this is a fard kifaya. So it's not an individual obligation, but a collective obligation. So I need to commend all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your efforts, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran jazakallah to Professor Suleiman Dango for the wonderful presentation. Very detailed, straight to the point, but very detailed. And it goes to the origins of Islam in South Africa, from the history when the colonizers arrived in the Cape to the present moment. I hope we will learn lessons from that and we'll be able to apply the insights to our Dawah work. What is important is to apply the insights that Professor Dango has shared with us today. They should go into the toolkit, the toolbox, because as Duat, as Da'i, we need to have a toolbox. And most of what has been shared here should go into our toolbox as we go out there and invite our brothers and sisters who are outside Islam to come and embrace the light, the truth of Islam. Jazakallah khair. So now I'm going to invite Brother Imam Dawood Simanga. He's going to give us a talk. Now, before Maulana Dawood Simanga comes, I would like to invite the Amir of IPCI, Dr. Khan, to give us a welcome talk, just to give us insights about IPCI and the work that is currently ongoing and the future of Dawah in South Africa. Welcome, Doctor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It is indeed a pleasure and privilege for me to welcome all you brothers here and sisters. And I would just like to bring the meeting or the discussion to a focus. The focus or the purpose of this meeting is this, that we have people doing dawah, different parts of Southern Africa, and the methodology has been used differently in different areas. And the reason for having this discussion here this morning was to for the different presenters to put forward the methodology so that we try to find out what is our way forward, and to also correct ourselves that whatever dawah work we are doing, are we on the right track or do we have to change our track? So this is the purpose of this, to get all the da'is together so we can discuss the type of dawah we are doing in Southern Africa and to see where we are missing out and to bring into focus the different ideas. So this is what we were going to discuss this morning. And we'd like to thank Professor for outlining some of the points that he made this morning. And we soon will have our brother from America, Siraj Wahhaj, and to listen in and to, actually it's not a lecture session, it's more a discussion session, that we would like to get more information as to the way forward dawah in Southern Africa. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran jazakallah, Amir, Dr. Khan, for the guidance. We really need to stick to the themes of this conference. We need to make progress. So let's stick to the themes. Our eminent scholars who have been invited to speak on the issue of dawah. We will make sure that we stick to the themes of the conference, because this conference has been organized with a particular mandate that we have to come up with an action plan. We really need to come up with a harmonized strategy from now going forward on how we are going to approach dawah with the new challenges that we are facing. So before I waste more time, we need to invite Sheikh Daoud Simanga with his presentation. His presentation is focusing on the two concepts of URF and ADA. URF and ADA. He's going to give us a synopsis of what this involves. He's not going to do a PowerPoint presentation today, but he's going to speak to you formally so that you can understand what he means, because he's taking a legal approach to the issue of dawah. He's actually going to expound the legal maxims that are aligned to the work that we are doing in our various communities. What are these legal maxims? Please join us in paying attention to his speech. Jazakallah khair.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين. وبعد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم التنزيل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. الآية. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May peace, blessings, and salutations of Allah be upon Muhammad ibn Abdullah, his household members, his companions, and all those who will follow in his way until the day of judgment. First of all, I would like to thank the IPCI for giving me this opportunity to stand before you today, and also allow me to acknowledge your presence. Although I won't be able to mention all of your names, Professor Suleiman Tengo, mashallah, what a presentation, subhanallah. You know, I feel shy to stand before you after, you know, what a detailed presentation of Professor. Subhanallah, Allah Ta'ala preserve him and give him more, long life. Also, I see Uncle Ismail there at the back, mashallah, after a very long time, mashallah. Also, see Morana and Tenje, mashallah, is there. Sheikh Ibrahim Jim is there, mashallah. Sheikh Musa Manza and others, you know. Also Sheikh Abbas Suleiman and others, you know, if I didn't mention your name, don't be offended, please. In fact, inshallah, I'll be brief, you know, I won't be long. I'll just, inshallah, summarize my presentation. So the topic of my presentation is the significance of understanding the urf, which is known as customary practice, and ada, which is known as tradition, and in implementation of legal maxims. So this is what, inshallah, I will try to speak, you know, regarding this. So first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He mentions, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Allah, He says, Ya ayyuhan nas. So in tafsir, the scholars of tafsir, whether it is Ibn Kathir, Muhammad al-Shawkani and others, so they mention that whenever the surah of the Quran starts with Ya ayyuhan nas, it means that surah is Makkiyah, and the chapter is Makkiyah. It is a Meccan chapter. It means it was revealed, you know, before Hijrah. And then if it commences with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, it means it's a Madani. It means it was revealed after, you know, the migration from Makkah to Medina. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Ya ayyuhan nas, oh mankind. So the word An-Nas, it is a general word that is used to include everybody, whether they are believers, they are infidels, they are atheists, they are polytheists, etc., etc. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing everyone. Say, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. This is something that we acknowledge, even if Allah did not tell us, but we acknowledge that Allah ta'ala says, we have created you min dhakarin wa untha, from a male and a female, which is Adam alayhi salam and his wife Hawa alayhi salam. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا. After we have created you from a male and a female, we have made you shu'uban. Now the word shu'ub, it is plural. And the singular is called, it is sha'ab. So sha'ab, there are different understanding of sha'ab. The meaning of sha'ab also can mean a clan. A sha'ab also can mean a tribe. So Allah Ta'ala says, we have created you from a male and a female, and we have made you shu'uban. We have made you clans. وَقَبَائِل, and the tribes. The Indian tribe, if it is a tribe, so there are different tribes. Zulu tribe, in South Africa, we got Xhosas, Sotho, Tswana, Venda, Pedi, you name them. So we have made you all these tribes. Why? لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may know each other. So the beauty of Islam is that all of us, irrespective of our tribes or clans or ethnicities, we have all come together, mashallah, so that you can recognize each other, so that you may know each other. And then after that, Allah Ta'ala says, Inna karamakum indallahi atqakum. So as you are tribes and clans, different tribes and clans, but the most importantly is the most honorable of you are those who are more God conscious, those who are more God fearing. So now the issue of shu'ub as well as the qaba'il, being clans and tribes, now this is what we need to speak about. Now in the field of da'wah, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he appointed or he assigned Mu'adh bin Jabal as a governor to Yemen. Ibn Abbas, he quoted this hadith. Ibn Abbas, he quoted this hadith. That Nabi Sallallahu, he taught Mu'adh bin Jabal the methodology of how to give da'wah and the approach, which we have to learn from this hadith. So now the first thing that he taught him is that إِنَّكَ تَأْتِي قَوْمًا مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ, that the people that you will meet them, in Yemen, these are the people of the scripture. These are the people of the book. Al-Yahud wal-Nasara, those are the Jews and the Christians. In other words, they have a khalfiyah, they have a background of divine laws. They have a background of divine scriptures. In other words, we have to prepare yourself. So you cannot just go in the field of da'wah just like that without preparing yourself. Also in that other ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he spoke about قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِ, say this is my way, أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ, I invite to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ, in the tafsir it says عَلَى علم. It means I invite to Allah based upon knowledge. You must have knowledge if you're in the field of da'wah. Why? Because if you don't have knowledge about Islam, so those people you are inviting them to Islam, they'll ask you a question that you'll be unable to answer. Then they will say, since you can't answer us, it means you don't know what you're following. You don't know your creed. So, leave us alone. You understand? So now the first thing that Nabi alayhi salam, he told Mu'adh bin Jabal, he said, the people you're going to meet in da'wah, in the field of da'wah, they are Ahlul Kitab. It means they do have a khalfiyah, they do have a background of the divine revelations, which is the Torah wal Injil. In other words, prepare yourself. You're not going to preach to people who are empty or they are ignorant. They got knowledge. And then he started now the first step. So now once you reach to those people that you want to invite them to Islam, so what is the first step? It's not the debate. The Bible is this, Quran is this, no, that is not the thing that you have to do in the field of da'wah. So he told him that فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلُ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَيْهِ شَهَادَةِ أَنْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. That the first thing we should invite those people who are the Ahlul Kitab, the Jews and the Christians, the first thing is invite them to the testimony that there is none worthy of worship in truth, illallah, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the first approach. No criticizing of their creed and their belief. Then the next step is فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوكَ لِذَلِكَ. So once they accept it from you, it means they become Muslims. Because the person become a Muslim after the Shahada, after the testimony that there is none worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it means if they accept the Shahada, it means they become Muslim. فَأَعْلِمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ افْتَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ 5 صَلَوَاتٍ فِي كُلِّ يَوْمٍ وَلَيْلَةٍ. Then let them know that after they embrace Islam, they have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made an obligation of 5 prayers during the day and night, to be performed. Is a duty. That is the second pillar of Islam. Thereafter, he told him also that فَإِنْهُمْ أَطَاعُوكَ لِذَلِكَ. So once they accept the 5 obligations, the 5 prayers is obligations, فَعَلِيهُمْ, let them know إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ افْتَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمُ الصَّدَقَةِ يعني الزكاة. See, the word sadaqah, it comes in the Quran and some hadith with the interpretation of az-zakah. إِنَّمَا الصَّدُقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ يعني إِنَّمَا الزَّكَوَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ. Then after they have accepted the 5 daily prayers, you should let them know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made another duty, another obligation, which is az-zakah. But now, how these have to be discharged? تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ إِلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. Now, this zakah should be taken from those who are rich among them. Now, of course, يعني أصحاب النصاب, because you all know that there are 2 prerequisites of zakah. One is an-nisab. Once a person owns or he possesses, a specific amount, it depends on the zakah, whether it is zakatul mawashi, it is the zakat of livestock. So it means if you have 40 sheep for the whole lunar year, then it means you have to pay a zakah. So now the specific amount of that wealth that he owns, it is known as nisab. I'm just giving you the picture. So then he said, now this zakah, it will be taken from those who are rich among them, فَتُرَدُّ إِلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. And then it will be rendered, or it will be given, or it will be for those who are indigent, those who are poor. So we all know that there are 8 recipients of a zakah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he speaks about them in the Quran. So now, zakatul mawashi, now the zakat of livestock. Now that's where I want to focus more, because of the next advice of Nabi Sallam to Mu'adh bin Jabal. So he said to him, إِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. So beware of their valuable property. It means when you're taking zakah, example, now let's give example of zakatul mawashi, now the zakat of livestock. So now if you're taking the zakat of the livestock, now do not take the cow, okay, let's say the fat cow, which they use it for milking, and they sell the milk for their survival, or they consume the milk for their survival. Now don't take that one as zakatul mawashi. Don't say, okay, I'm taking this one because you have to pay zakatul mawashi, the zakat of the livestock. I mean, you came to us. They will say, you came to us, told us about Islam, we accepted everything. And you told us about zakatul mawashi, the zakat of livestock, and you are taking this fat cow that you're using for milking. Khalas, we can't say anything, whatever you decide. So he told him that إِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Beware and do not take the valuable of their property. And then at the end, he told him that وَاتَّقِ دَعْوَةَ الْمَظْلُومِ. You should be cautious of the da'wah, of the invocation and the supplication of the al-madhlum, of a person who is oppressed, of a person who is oppressed. Why? فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَتْ بَيْنَهَا وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٌ. Because why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he instantly accepts the dua and the supplication of a person who is oppressed. Now, brothers, just imagine in the field of da'wah and taking the zakat of mawashi of the livestock, but because he has taken the valuable of what they use, that might be oppressing them. So the definition of al-urf and al-ada. So, because of time, brothers, look, lots of ulama, you can say the majority of the ulama, they have classified urf and ada as one, as one category. In other words, urf and ada, these are the synonyms, two different words, but with the one common meaning. So now it is mentioned in Lisan al-Arab. We all know Lisan al-Arab, it's such a huge dictionary, I will encourage, every one of you, if you can be able to, to buy this dictionary, it will help you a lot, in terms of understanding some terms and some words which, are in Arabic, you want to understand them properly. So in Lisan al-Arab, Ibn Mandur, so when he defined al-urf and the ada, he said, what people are accustomed to in their customs and dealings. In other words, you as a da'i, you as a da'i, you are approaching the Zulu community. Professor Denga spoke about Lobola issues and all of that. So now you are approaching the Zulu community, the Zulu society. So it means you must have ma'rifah, you must have knowledge about their culture and the customary practice. That a man, before he gets married, he has to pay lobola. And brothers and sisters, let me tell you, many people don't know about lobola. There are other things besides lobola. There's imvulamlomo. Imvulamlomo means, when you send a delegation to the family of the girl. So now when they reach there, they have to, read some praises. This is one of the big things in the Zulu culture. Okay, then they'll be happy. Okay, Now the next thing is, before they can speak to you, now you have to open their mouth. How do you open their mouth? So you have to place some money on the table. Because if you don't do that, you'll speak. They will listen to you, but they won't say anything. Until you place some money you understand? Until you place some money on the then it's called Vulamlomo. Then after that, negotiations, then Lobola comes, this and that. So this so you as a da'i, you have to be cognizant of the urf and the ada, the customary practice of this nation, that before nikah can take place, Lobola is required. Now, the legal maxim that I would like to implement in this scenario here, it is a common and well-known legal maxim. It's called قاعدة فقهية العادة محكمة. In English, it says the customary practice is firm. Now, it is firm on certain basis. So there are prerequisites for it to be firm. The first prerequisite for it to be firm is أن تكون مضطردة. Now, this customary practice in that society, in that community, it must be mutarida. It means every individual in that community, okay, in our context, the Zulu community, all of them, they have to know that a man, before he gets married, he must pay lobola. But so if certain people in the community, they don't know that, then it is not mutarida, it is not firm, it cannot be recognized by Sharia. Then the second prerequisite, which I will conclude with it, is that Allah tukhalifa nassan shar'iyan. Now this ada, this customary practice, it shouldn't be in contrary, or it should not contradict any direct text of Sharia. It shouldn't be contrary to the ayah of the Quran. Example, now according to Zulu culture, whenever they slaughter a cow, so they take blood and they leave it for some time, then it becomes thick. It's called ububend, Then they consume the blood. But now it's contrary to the direct text. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in the Quran that, blood is haram. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ. The carrion and blood is haram. So now, obviously, if they're doing that, it means it's contrary to the direct text of Sharia. So, inshallah, with these few words, this brief and summary of the presentation, I hope, inshallah, you'll have the understanding that before we go in the field of da'wah, whatever community that we're inviting them to Allah, must have a background of their belief, must have a background of their customary practice, so that our da'wah and the status quo in the region may change. Wallahu a'lam. Allah ta'ala know better. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shukran Jazakallah, Imam Dawood in Simanga, for the wonderful presentation. Actually, it dives into the legal maxims of Dawah, which is very important. The culture aspects that he has touched on, it's very important. That's one of the things we have overlooked over the years because we are not empathetic to the local customs, to the local cultures. And as a result, we end up being rejected in the various communities. We think we can just impose our message on people who have never heard a word about Islam before. We forget that the best way to attract our brothers and sisters is by being empathetic. Give them a listening ear. Make them understand that we actually respect their local customs and cultures. That's the best way to conduct dawah. I would like to open the floor to some questions because we might have one or two questions based on the paper that brother has just presented to us. Just two minutes. Now, Dr. Han would like to come again and give us guidance. Just a few seconds.
Not guidance. I'm not here to guide, but just to lead the discussion. Our brother spoke about tribes, but it's actually more than tribes, it's nations. The verse of the Quran refers to, we have created you into tribes and nations so that you may understand each other. The thing is that we here to go forward and get the methodology of what you call dawah. We are not going to detail about each what you call tribe and what we have to do, because then we're going to not achieve the purpose of our meeting here. We are here to go forward as to the methodology of what you call dawah, whether we are fulfilling the dawah, because there's so much media of dawah. We have physical dawah, we have street dawah, we have dawah people sitting in the office and sending out SMSs and all what you call messages, digital dawah. I know digital dawah is important, but it does not envisage or take into account the people that are out there that is not exposed to digital dawah. So this is why we have, and the thing is that what is affecting us? So far we are talking about speaking to the Christians, the Jews, etc., etc. But what is our new problem that we are faced with today? We are faced with atheism, which was there, but it has become very prominent now. And the LBQ thing is coming in as well. How do you approach it? Because it's a direct attack on Islam. And should we align with other religious groups against these practices or this what you call formation? So these are some of the things we would like to discuss. The methodology of dawah. Is we doing, are we achieving the best dawah? The other thing is that the previous speaker spoke about is that we should have knowledge. Alhamdulillah, that's very important. But more important than that is your behavior and your taqwa and your sincerity. And before you get into dawah, you have to discipline yourself, the way you behave, etc. And secondly, to know enough knowledge if you want to be promoting the religion, both from the Islamic point of view and from the people that you engage with. Just a few comments.
Shukran, Jazakallah, Dr. Han, for the guidance. I still call it that guidance because we need to stick to the purpose of this conference. The purpose is we need to come up with a methodology, an action plan that will empower us when we go back to the various communities to embark on the work of dawah methodically, because that's what we need. So let us stick to the themes so that we can be productive today. Let's stick to the themes of the conference. I will just outline the themes of the conference for you on the screen so that as we go into our break time while waiting for our main speaker, we should be mindful of the themes of the conference. Yes, we'll take a few questions, 2 or 3 questions based on the speech, or comments based on the speech by Imam Dawood Nsimanga.
Assalamu alaikum. Don't mean to digress because I understand what Dr. Khan has been saying with regards to the theme of the conference where we are focusing on methodology. But I'm just addressing this particular issue because we seem to be encountering this a lot of the times when doing dawah. This is regarding the lobola that the previous speaker mentioned. How do we cope? How do we advise the people? Because they so the reverts, the new Muslims are so stuck into tradition as well, that they feel that if they don't go via the lobola route, then maybe the marriage, won't be authentic. I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of Sharia or to impress upon them, what constitutes a nikah, for example. But how do we convince them to move away from that custom of lobola, or do we try to get them to move away from that custom?
Yes, that's a very important question. Dr. Khan will take the question for your sister.
Not that I have the answers, but I would like to suggest that Islam is not against culture. Long as that culture does not affect the belief in Islam. Your principles in Islam cannot be violated. But that does not mean that you should be against any culture. So whether lobola is affecting the Sharia is something that we have to think about and decide. If it's not affecting it, then I don't think we should have fatwas against that. So in other words, we are not dead, because this is very important of the Sunnah of the Prophet. He never changed the culture of the community that he was serving. But anything in the culture that affected the Sharia, that was brought to book. So this is what we should have in mind. And as I said, this lobola thing and all that, I don't know whether it's going to be against the Sharia. Is something for us to decide.
Shukran Jazakallah, Dr. Khan. Any more questions?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No, actually, it's not a question, just to add on what Uncle was saying there. So if you look at the issue of aqiqah, how it came about. So before the bi'tha and the mission of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, so it was a customary practice for the Arabs that when the baby is born, so they will slaughter an animal, and then they will apply the blood of the animal on the hair of the baby. So when Nabi Sallam, he received the prophethood and the nubuwah, so he looked and he analyzed this customary practice, and then he told them, look, do not apply blood on the hair of the infant, because they used to have some beliefs, that maybe the blood of the animal will, will look after the baby, protect the baby and all of that. So he said, no, the only thing that you can do not apply the blood on the hair, but continue to slaughter, the sheep. And then he said on the 7th day after the baby is born, you name the infant, and then you slaughter 2 sheep for the boy and 1 for the girl. So now this customary practice, even after Islam, it continued because there was no anything that was contrary to the direct text of Sharia, as I've mentioned, the prerequisite of this legal maxim, that there shouldn't be any direct, there shouldn't be any contradiction in the direct text. So until today, we do, aqiqah because it was done in Jahiliyyah. But the only thing that was not right was to apply the blood of the animal on the hair. Otherwise, it continues. Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best.
Shukran, Jazakallah for the answer. Any follow-up questions?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just want to give a comment or an idea that the IPCI should look at bringing more speakers in line to come and help us to explain us about other cultures before we go into people's communities to go and talk about Islam. As you say, that is important to know about the culture. So the brother and the Sheikh spoke very well. Well, he did get cut off. He should have had a little more time. But if they can look at that, at other times bring different speakers from different cultures to come and explain us. I'm talking about people or the cultures around us here in South Africa, in Durban, so that we can learn a little more, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. Inshallah, that's a beautiful comment. It's an insightful comment. We take note of that comment and we'll make sure that we implement it, inshallah. I think we would like to move on.
Yes.
Yes, brother.
I'm Molana Yusuf from Eastern Cape, King Williamstown. I just want I know I came a bit late, but I understood the topic that Molana spoke on, or Sheikh spoke on. Alhamdulillah, what I would like to request in general from us as so-called indigenous or people of tradition of Southern Africa, or South Africa to be specific, is in the process of us trying to go for dawah towards our indigenous people and trying not to basically to alter their culture in a way. We should also, in the opposite, try to be very careful of trying to prove culture in Islam, because it is a general norm that I have noticed that some of our brothers who are so culturally inclined are trying to some extent to prove culture in Islam. As a result of that, for example, what will happen in KZN, it's done in the Zulu form, like what my beautiful sister is saying. I'm coming from Xhosa land. Okay, the system is not so very different. It is similar, but there are technicalities. Then from Xhosa land, there are Mbondos, who are also different from Xhosas, you know? So it is a vast thing, but at the same time, if I as a Xhosa, when I'm trying to accommodate the culture of Xhosas in the process, compromising Islam, it is not good of me. It is not good for the Zulu, nor is it good for the Sotho, because Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fis-silmi kafa. So we shouldn't have our legs balanced on both sides, even though whatever it is not disliked from that culture can be used in Islam, but we shouldn't try to prove culture in Islam.
Shukran, Jazakallah for the comment. I'm not attempting a response, but I just want to shed light on some of the issues around culture. I think when we mention culture, most of the times there is this temptation to always reduce culture to the things that we do that are unique to us. If we can attempt to find universal values that each and every culture align to, we will see Islam in each and every of those values. Original universal values. Because Islam, we are meant to understand Islam is the original deen. It's the original religion. It's the religion of mankind, and all the Anbiya who were sent by Allah to preach the word of Allah, to preach the word of Islam, were preaching the same message. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam just came to perfect that message. So if you look across cultures, you will be able to pick those universal values that connect us. And I understand if we can follow that example that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam followed by scrutinizing those values that can hold us together and that can attract brothers who are outside the fold of Islam to come into Islam, we'll be able to see that cultures are not actually contradicting. The cultures that are contradicting Islam are the things that people have created that were not original to us as mankind. Those people have created, each society, each sect, each clan, each tribe creates, because culture is not cut in stone. It has evolved over the years. So if you go back to the original Ibn Adam, to the original man, you find that our original cultures were Islam. Basically, it was Islam. So let us return. That's why the message of Rasulullah was always, let us return to the source. Let us return to our source. And that is our culture. I'm not an expert. I'm just trying, because that has been my area of research for the past 3 years. I've been researching on spirituality and Islam, understanding Ubuntu and Islam. Why is it that every time we go to Ubuntu, we find things that are very relevant to us as Muslims? So most of my publications actually revolve around Ubuntu and Islam. So let us not denigrate culture so much, because it depends on one's definition of culture. If you go back to the original culture that we, as Ibn Adam, embraced as people of Allah, we will come back to the same answer, that culture will not contradict Islam if we go back to the original culture. Shukran jazakallah khairan. I would like to invite the next speaker. Sister, I think we will address your question after the next speaker's presentation. Is that okay? Inshallah. Our next speaker today is Mufti Saeed Ngane. Saeed Ngane is going to present and also to summarize the main theme of the conference today. Please lend him an ear. He's got a very interesting topic, but basically he's going to touch on all the themes, the 5 themes of the conference today. These themes are current Dawah status quo in the region, current Dawah resources being used effectively or ineffectively. Do we need a new agenda? Do we need a new agenda for Dawah in South Africa? Global environment vis-a-vis contemporary Dawah challenges. And the last one is tabling of new Dawah strategies. So he's going to guide us along. Please, let's pay attention to his presentation. Shukran.
نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Unfortunately, I can notice some of our brothers are not responding. I can see the mouths are shut, but I'm making salam, which is something very disappointing as Muslims. The word salam is also the one of the attributes of Allah Ta'ala. And we are encouraged that we should give salam and also respond to the salam, inshallah. Please make me maaf that I will have to again make salam and request everybody. Inshallah, will be rewarded, inshallah, for responding. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If possible, also, as I met our honorable chair, I made salam to him, I greeted him, I also even shook his hand. I'll just request if someone next to you, because I've noticed in many Muslim gatherings, we just come and sit, we don't make salam to each other, we don't even musafaha, we don't even sisters, don't even hug. There is always those barriers that we have created, which have resulted into the ummah to be at this state. Please let us make a musafaha. Just please make a handshake. We need it and we like it. The time is very short for such big topics, and the time is very limited. But may Allah Ta'ala help us, inshallah, with these few minutes, inshallah, to share what will be inspired from him, inshallah. And what I can say, maybe taking from the last topic that has been discussed and coming to the summary of the theme of our discussions. Currently, I have 3 wives. Alhamdulillah. My first wife, I paid lobola for her. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy on her. She passed away. Apa Khadija, I paid lobola on her. I went to the family because of the reasons, because the family, they could not accept our nikah. They could not accept, so I had to put together some money and go and pay lobola. She's coming from the Kosa land, from where our Molana Yusuf is from, so I had to go and pay lobola. But also, one of my wives also is coming from a little bit of background, of Muslim background, so I paid meher. So I won't detail all the wives, but I'm saying sometimes it's because every relationship is unique. So you will have to try and deal with each situation as it comes. Inshallah, every situation will be unique. And I don't want to delve too much on this issue of lobola and meher, but once when I was studying, I had an opportunity to be at the feet of a very great scholar, Mufti Ibrahim Desai, rahmahullah, here in Sherwood, at Darul Ifta Mahmudiyah. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him. He passed away last year during COVID. And it just happened that when we were in Dars, when we were studying, then we started hearing sirens, a lot of sirens and the bodyguards all over. Then Mufti Saab said, no, don't worry, that is the king of the Zulu. It's his neighbor. He's got a neighbor next to us. There's a neighbor, a business partner. The Zulu king is here. That's why there's all these bodyguards and the sirens and everything. So we were shocked, the student, what's going on. We were still new students. After the Alim course, Allah Ta'ala gave us the opportunity to go and do the Mufti course, the Iftar course. So it was during that time in the Iftar course. Then he asked me, he said, Saeed, you are a Zulu. Tell me, what can be the first thing or the most important thing that you can speak to the Zulu king? You know, what can be the important thing if you are given an opportunity to speak to the Zulu king? I told Mufti Saab, obviously, it should be to try and call him into Islam, inshallah. You know, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ. Whose speech is better than... So any speech that me and the king would have discussed, there's nothing better than calling him to Allah. وَعَمِلَ الصَّالِحَ al-ayah. So I said, obviously, it will be to call him to Allah, call him to Islam. And the second thing will be the issue of lobola. I will speak to the Zulu king about this issue of lobola, that please, king, can you please make an announcement to all the chiefs and kings in the country that you are reducing lobola into 1 cow? Because people are unemployed. There is over 60% of unemployment. Most of the men on the street, people are resorting into drugs, crime, and everything in the country because there's so much of unemployment. But now, if you have these rules and these customary rules, which we are not looking down upon, but because of the time that has changed, and there are no more cows now. Before, people used to trade barter and all that. Money talks now, you know, but many people don't have money. I would have asked the king to please reduce the lobola and make it a rule in South Africa that at least reduce into 1 cow, just 1 cow. So that is my perception and also observation and my points on this issue of lobola. But coming into the summary of the issue of today, because from some of the themes is that we need a new agenda. What I can say is that a lot has been achieved. A lot has been achieved because we have to be honest to each other. For us to be here where we have IPCI. This is also a great achievement. A lot has been achieved. For myself, for instance, I accepted Islam in the prison a good 20 years ago. I was sentenced 15 years in prison for armed robbery, unfortunately. But because of some ulama who are going to prisons doing dawah, so I happened to get some pamphlets on IPCI, the Quran, and started reading and understanding and accepted Islam from the prison. Alhamdulillah, until I came out, I decided to go and study because I felt that this message, everybody needs to know about this. Maybe it can't be concealed, you know. So I'm just saying that a lot has been achieved in terms of our Muslim community, ulama, and the businessmen and the collective, which are trying that Islam must be spread in the country. But this lot which has been achieved, I can compare it to a cup in the ocean. Unfortunately, a lot has been achieved. We have to acknowledge that. If people in prison can change, for instance, I will not just make an example. In my community, I'm not coming here to advertise or to market myself, but I'm just trying to show that a lot has been achieved. In my community, I was a deputy mayor, and I was voted by my community and to become a deputy mayor, and they begged me to become a councillor in the area, and so on and so on. But from where? From the prison, armed robbery, and reading some articles of Islam, and also having influence of Islam and good character in the community, until people will say, no, we want you to become a deputy, we want to become a councillor, meaning that there is a lot that has been achieved. But to be honest, from my observation, since I'm an indigenous Zulu-speaking Muslim, when I compare a lot that has been achieved, it is like a cup in the ocean. This is my honest observation. But as a result of some obstacles that we are facing, and challenges and barriers which are making this such stagnation of Islam stagnant. Islam is stagnant. There are some lands where Islam came in a few tens and hundreds of years, and then people, the entire population, like Indonesia, originally there was no Islam. In Somalia, originally there was no Islam, but when Islam came, with those who came with Islam, then Islam did spread like wildfire. But there are some lands where Islam came, Islam became stagnant. And unfortunately, we have to be honest that one of the lands is South Africa. Islam, a lot has been achieved, but we can see there is stagnation. Islam is stagnant, it's not growing. And to compare this, there is a surah, I'm sure most of us we know, Surah Nasr. This is not a bayan. Please, it's not a bayan. It's an observation, and after this, inshallah, there'll be questions and then there'll be interactions. If you look at Surah Nasr, we all know, إِذَا جَاءَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ. Allah Ta'ala is saying, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتِحِ. When the Nasr, the help of Allah Ta'ala, is talking to the Nabi, also not just talking to the Nabi and his followers and those who will come, even like how we have followed the Nabi, we are here today, and those who will come after us. That if you see, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتِحِ, when the help of Allah Ta'ala and Fath, conquest, victory come, how are you going to see the help of Allah Ta'ala as well as the victory? Allah Ta'ala is saying that وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. How are you going to see that Allah Ta'ala's help is with us and Allah Ta'ala's victory is with us? We will see it by the people in this context, the South African people, the Zulu, the Xhosa, Malema, Mbegi, Zuma, everyone. We will see it by, look, in our context, in the context of the Nabi, it was the Quraysh, the tribe of Mudar, and different tribes which were in Makkah and Medina. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was told that you will see that Allah Ta'ala's help is with you when you see the people entering into deen of Allah Ta'ala, afwaja, like in is in Zulu, what I would say is in folds and in waves and waves, coming into deen in groups and groups and groups. This is a measure that I wish that wherever we go, wherever we are, we should use it to gauge if Allah Ta'ala's Nasr, the help and the victory is with us. We will see it by seeing people coming into folds and folds of Islam, into groups and groups and groups, which is unfortunately not happening in our country, though our professor, with his good presentation that he has made, and which was clear that Islam came into the country in the 1700s, maybe a good 200 years ago, maybe 300, close to 300 years ago. But if you compare with other lands, Islam that came, but majority of the people were Muslims. They became Muslims till today. They are generations of Muslims. Some of the obstacles and some of the challenges that we have to be honest to each other. Unfortunately, we have to be honest to each other. There is a surah also in the Quran, a very short surah. I said, let me just speak about these small surahs, you know. Surah Asr, we all know Surah Asr. Allah Ta'ala is saying, Wal Asr, he's taking a qasam, we all know, but let me just go to the point that وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, you know, that mankind is at loss, except those who believe, you know, and do righteous deeds. And then what they do, وَتَوَاصَوْا, they advise each other with haqq. So I expect that as we are here, all of us here, we won't be offended if haqq is being spoken. If we are offended, you know, we have to try and go back to Surah Asr. Wal Asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu. So if we are people of Iman, when haqq comes to you, it should not offend you, because it's something that is encouraged, that we should tell each other haqq. Maybe it will depend the manner how it comes. But if it's haqq, we should try and accept it. As I said, that a lot has been achieved in terms of dawah in South Africa. But when you compare it, it's like a cup in the ocean. Meaning now, you're trying to be constructive in your criticism, you know, you're not destroying. A lot has been achieved, but it's like a cup in the ocean. So if we have to tell each other haqq, some of the impediments, obstacles, and reasons why we are not achieving this, يَدْخُلُونَ النَّاسَ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ. You'll see people entering the deen of Allah Ta'ala afwaja. Why we are not achieving that? One of the main obstacles, according to my observation, because I'm coming from a non-Muslim background, unfortunately also from a criminal background, unfortunately, but Allah Ta'ala has guided us. So my observation, when I came into the deen, it was the message of the Quran, the message of the ukhuwah, of the brotherhood, the message that I read when I was still in prison, then I came out and studied. Now, what I've noticed, one of the main obstacles why Islam is not going anywhere is racism. I may be wrong, depending from where you are looking at. Because, for instance, I remember a story when there was people who were told, it was blind people, some of our ulama will remember the story, that they were told this was a blind school. So now they were told that here is an elephant. Another one was holding the leg, another one the tail, another one the trunk. So when they were asked, you know, how does the elephant look, you know, or how describe the elephant? The other one described it from the perspective of the leg, another one perspective of the trunk and task like that, you know. So what I will say is from my own observation and perspective. You may disagree with me, I'm open for corrections. But according to my observation, one of the main obstacles why Islam is not going anywhere, it's racism. And tribalism will follow. Nationalism, that no, me, I'm Somali. You know, because of my nationality, those are Zulus, you know, mustn't be close to them. I'm Malawi. All these isms, I have noticed that they are impediment. Even Allah Ta'ala has gave us light. We came to this country with the flag of Islam, but it just remained with us alone, you know. It's because I can see some brothers who are Somalians here. I don't have to ask. I can see them as our brothers. I hope we are not offended, inshallah. Ikhwan. So what I'm saying is that not just only racism, but also nationalism, tribalism, and all these isms, they are one of the most impediments. So if some of us, we have some of these sicknesses, we should try, inshallah, from today, and also encourage others, you know, to work on these issues of try not to be racist, tribalist, and all that, because these are issues which are really, for my own observation, which are an impediment. Also, there are many issues. Muslims in the country, they have resources, but we don't have a vision. There's no vision. Institutions, a lot of organizations, but if you can just ask a 5-year or even a 1-year vision that our organization, what do we want to achieve in terms of bringing people to Islam in the country and to market Islam? Most of us organizations and the boards that we have, there is no vision. And what I've noticed, because I've been very fortunate to sit and look at some books of some boards, the only vision is about how much money should we make and how much money have we made. I'm talking haqq. The vision is not about how many people are coming to the fold of Islam in Mlazi. Mlazi is not far away from here, IPCI. Wamash is not far away from here, all these locations and the rural areas. The vision in most of our organizations is not about how many people, how many can we try. I've heard in once that there was a village that was created in Syria by our Muslim from South Africa. A village was created, donations were, which is good. What about trying to create an indigenous Muslim village in South Africa? Inshallah, charity begins at home. Before we go abroad, we start here. What about that? There is no vision. Why sometimes there's no vision? It's because you remember the story of Bilal. When Hazrat Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he climbed the Kaaba and then he made the azan. Amongst the people of the Quraysh, from the ayah which was read by our respected Ustaz, Sheikh Msimango, Dawood Msimango, then the tafsir of the ayah was that some of the Arabs, when they saw Bilal there on top of the Kaaba, imagine the Kaaba, and Bilal, you know, and with his dark skin, and his raisins, hair like raisins, and he's on top of the Kaaba, which is a holy house, you know. Imagine now these two, like Bilal with his hair and his skin on top of the Kaaba. Some of the Arabs, they say, Alam yajid Muhammad. Did Muhammad not find anyone, ahadun, ghayra hadha, ghurabun aswad? Did Muhammad not find anyone beside this dark crow? 5 minutes. So from that time, racism, tribalism has always been an obstacle. But to try, and also no representation of different groups, because Islam is becoming colorful as we are here now, different colors. Now in many boards, in many organizations, because Islam is run by organizations and darulums, in many boards, you will find only one color which is dominant. I may not mention, you may guess, but we need to, all this transformation is needed so that you can be able to see transformation on the ground. It has to start on top. We can't expect that Islam has to grow and what is the problem, but we personally, we don't want to transform because of our egoism and everything, tribalism and all this. So these are issues that, these are, watawasaw bil haqq, watawasaw bis sabr. You'll please have sabr with me because I will engage everyone with haqq. These are issues, because when I'm looking at this place, it's more like a surgery, you know, where we have this sick body of the ummah, and we're asking ourselves, what is wrong? And we are like the doctors of the ummah. We are du'at. We are the people of da'wah, people of ulum, and people of inspiration. Now we have this sick body of the ummah. Now the body is sick. You know, we've got, now we have to try and cut where we have to cut, stitch where we have to stitch. Though it's painful, but these things have to be said. And some of it, maybe it could be the lack of the resources which are being collected in different avenues and but the channeling of the resources. I remember in one meeting I was called in, and then the organization 5 years ago, the organization said this year we have collected over 200 million zakat. And that this was 5 years ago, if I remember, if not 6 years ago. Now I'm thinking that 200 million of zakat, and like how Sheikh Dawood said, when zakat is collected, it should be seen, it should translate, should be seen into the needy Muslims before we take it out of the country. Even especially the imams, most of the imams in my area, I nearly said including myself, but let me exclude myself. In my area, the imams are living in pathetic conditions. The imam doesn't have even a mount, not even have a vehicle, but he's more like a social worker, because he's attending to madrasa students, attending to janaza, to marriages, but the conditions are pathetic. Now, in closing, because there is a lot that I would have loved to share in the evolution of fiqh, because fiqh, in most people who understand fiqh as you are speaking to maybe wuzu, and the qiyam and the sajda and julus. No, fiqh, in a general sense of it, it is the understanding, not just the jurisprudence, but the understanding. May yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if Allah Ta'ala wants something good for a person, he intends good for someone, he will give him a better understanding of din. Yufaqihu fi din. In the evolution of fiqh, because what I understood when I was accepting Islam in prison a good 20 years ago, it's different from what I am now. Since I've been in government, in the municipality. Now, in my understanding, in the evolution of fiqh, like how you see a butterfly starting from a caterpillar and then it becomes a beautiful butterfly, likewise, as Muslims, we should evolve and we should be ready to evolve and look at things as time changes, also allow ourselves to evolve. What I would love to encourage in my closing is that in that 2 minutes extra that our chair will give me, I want to emphasize this, that as Muslims, especially different organizations, because we have given the task of da'wah too much to the ulama. In South Africa, I've seen the intellectuals, academics, and the businessmen, they feel that no, the ulama are doing the job. The ulama have, but if you go to the Dars al-Nizam, I was fortunate to stay for 6 years and study Alim course, and even extra 2 years to study a Mufti course. But in the entire Dars al-Nizam, there is no takhassus fi da'wah. There is no specializing on da'wah. Ulama have not been trained. They are qualifying in many madaris every year in hundreds. I don't know if you can statistics and see how many ulama have qualified over the years when the darums have started, which they've done a very great job for the ummah. But there's a problem. There's no takhassus fi da'wah. It's not there. And I doubt it will ever be there because of the system, how it has been channeled. But there's a great work that has been done in Darul Ulooms. But now the organizations, especially dawah organizations which are known, your IPCI, your IDM, whatever, I think I'm not making anything wrong by mentioning names, but I'm saying organizations which are known as in field of dawah. Maybe we should try and create a cause and create an institutions, come together as organizations, create a cause of takhasus for da'wah, and also blend it with takhasus in politics. We need to get ourselves as Muslims in this country involved in politics, because the political climate of the country is changing. We can all see that the ruling party is dying. And a lot of stalwarts, Yusuf Dadu and many stalwarts, Ahmed Katrada, have passed away. May Allah Ta'ala have mercy on them. And as they are passing away and no Muslims are in politics, we mustn't be shocked when we see the DA and EFF coalition government banning our azan, saying no more azan in this country, because we are not there, we don't want to participate. In closing, In closing, that 1 minute, in closing, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if you'll go to the first chapter of Bukhari, in Babu Kayfa Kana Bad'ul Wahi ila Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a chapter how Wahi began coming to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, like in the form of bees buzzing, in the form of like jingle bells and all that, different forms, and Jibreel alayhi salam used to come. The chapter goes and on and on. But in that chapter, the first chapter of Bukhari, you will find that when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the first encounter with Jibreel alayhi salam, when he held him, and then he said, "Iqra, read," and he was terrified. He went to his wife Khadija. On this note, I want to encourage wives at home, wherever. Our husbands, when they're coming from work, we must comfort them. The world is terrifying them. They're in terror, being terrified. But we should, when they go home, we should be there to comfort them. Now, in closing, now Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the wife said, Khadija said, Allah Ta'ala won't do anything to you wrong to you, because you are like a social worker. You look after the widows, you look after the orphans and this and that. This is the method of the Nabi, to be compassionate to those people who are around us in our communities, despite of the color and everything. But the ultimate goal of the Nabi was not only to teach Alif Bata and everything, but ultimate goal of the Nabi was to govern. If Nabi Sallallahu was here today in Durban, I'm sure he would have wanted to be part of the municipality in Durban and govern and show them how, because he was sent as a Rahmatul Alameen. Now we should encourage Muslims to go into government, inshallah.
Shukran, Jazakallah, Mufti Saeed Saab, for the powerful presentation. Actually, it has really reignited the fire in us. It has sparked that fire again. We should be able to be equipped with this presentation, go out there and present Islam. I think he has mentioned something very important, that we get qualified ulema every year. We are graduating them every year, but none of these ulema are being equipped with the tools of dawah. We are not training du'at, we are training ulema, but we are withholding one aspect which is crucial to us as a deen, in order to expand the deen, in order to invite others to the truth of Islam. We are not equipping our scholars with the toolbox of dawah. That's our disease. That's our disease. That's why we are here today. And on this occasion, we should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having made it possible that this becomes the first in a series of works, in a series of conferences that are going to be discussing and coming up with strategies of taking the dawah movement forward. Today, we have an important guest amongst us. He is an important scholar of the current times. He's an eminent da'i, and he comes all the way from New York. Before we invite him to the stage, I would like to take a few questions based on this presentation that Brother Mufti Saeed Saab has presented us. Just 2 or 3 questions. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
We bringing the question to you or to Mufti Saab?
To Mufti Saab.
Okay. To Mufti Saab, Alhamdulillah, I'm happy for the fact that you are based in Harding, which is the border of Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. Firstly, I would like you to become our ambassador in KwaZulu-Natal, so that you can beg them to come to the Eastern Cape and do the work that they are failing to do. They have done enough in KwaZulu-Natal, as in the form of a cup that we are speaking of. Eastern Cape is dry. We are fighting. We have no support. Alhamdulillah, we are doing great work in our area. you know, Mufti Sab. But the thing is, we are not getting any emotional support, financial support. We are struggling. And as a result of that, whenever we are crying out, nobody wants to listen, because before somebody can listen, somebody must refer you. So we don't want to be referred. We want to be seen by the work that we are doing. So inshallah, Mufti Sab, please become our ambassador, beg our brothers, be like those blind people who will be holding the leg and say, please, I'm begging you, I'm carrying you with me to the Eastern Cape. Jazakumullah.
Shukran for the question. Mufti Sab, Mufti Saeed Sab.
Assalamu alaikum once again. From my own observation, humble, I think it's a comment and a wish also, and the dua at the same time. Inshallah, I must become an ambassador. But I'm just appealing to all different organizations that inshallah, let us try and be inclusive, you know, in the transform so that issues like how Mulana Bosman, I know the hard work they are doing in the Eastern Cape, but it's just that because of non-representation in big organizations, so like though the resources are there, but they don't filter down where the need is. So we just want to encourage our Muslim organization to inshallah transform, you know, full stop, inshallah. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Any more follow-up comments? No, you can ask now. Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to hog the mic here, but just to introduce myself, I'm a chief admin of a group, a forum that's called South African Dawah Forum. That is why now I have to say this so that our chairperson is going to give me a chance to just vocalize some of my concerns as well. What Mufti Saab said is so very true, and some other speakers as well, regarding coordinated effort that has to be made. And what problem I'm seeing is that it is rather disjoint effort in terms of dawah. I find that IPCI is doing something, IDM is doing something, and some other organization is doing something. The very fact that lots of organizations are not present here today is indicative of what I'm telling you. That is so sad, despite the fact that I've posted on most of our national chats, that I've reminded them for the last week. I've been reminding them. And even this morning, it's not an IPCI thing. It's a conference. It includes everybody, every organization, every da'i. So I don't see why they're not here. So the thing is that networking, that is why we created that forum, South African Dawah Forum. But that doesn't mean we're going to confine Dawah to just South Africa. It's South Africa and beyond. So networking is so we can't work in pockets. That is why I told Ismet, I don't know what he calls his org, MIE something. He said he does this networking thing on umbrella. He's supposed to be an umbrella body. So I told him to map out on a map, indicate where dawah is being done with a green dot. See, put a red dot, a no-go area, maybe it's too dangerous. An orange dot for indicative of something that needs to be done, and so forth and so forth. So I'm saying that we have to do something on a collective level, and that's lacking at the moment. If you're going to talk about methodology, that is one of that. And why? I'm sorry I'm taking up time, but because we're doing a lot of work on our forum, but it seems as though it's not enough. And then the other thing that I just want to mention, by the way, is that language and terminology. You know, we must try as much as possible in our literature to avoid Arabic and Urdu terminology. Don't think that our reverts, you don't understand what we're talking about. Use the terminology by all means, but always give a meaning, an English meaning or a Zulu meaning, depending on who we're addressing. So also when it comes to names of prophets, like Musa alayhi salam, say also it's Moses, peace be upon him, so that people know that they were same person, the same prophet. And in this one, I'm making a special appeal on behalf of my Marhoom brother who passed away 4 weeks ago. He was so passionate about this. He kept on saying, I don't understand why they would keep on saying Musa alayhi salam in the masjid during khutbah when they could say Moses as well. So just on his behalf. Then, by the way, the Qur'ans that are being given, which is wonderful, translated by Yusuf Ali and I think Sa'i International, beautiful translations. But I think that as a starting point, there is a Quran by, I call him Sheikh. He doesn't, they call him Bhai. They call him Ghulam Bhai. Ghulam Musa? No, have I got it wrong? Ghulam Ibrahim? No, got it wrong. Musa Ibrahim, brother Musa Ibrahim. But actually I would call him Sheikh because that Quran, it's paraphrased. So it gives you also the backdrop of Islamic history, hadith and so forth. So the new Muslim coming into Islam will have a backdrop of knowledge, because if you just give Sa'i International or you give a Yusuf Ali, the person who's coming into Islam is coming from nowhere. He may not even understand his own religion if he's coming from Christianity, for example. So we need to give, I think, Iqbal, you got it on your shelf. Have you? I'm sure I've seen it on your shelf. So that is another thing that I thought I'd mention. And then Mufti Saeed made an excellent point. Why is dawah relegated only to the ulama and various certain organizations? It's our duty. You remember you had a seminar here, you had a speaker, I forget his name now. The theme was history won't forgive us, right? Sunnah laid down by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 2 billion Muslims today. Why are we slowing down? We're supposed to be in our workplace, wherever we are, we're supposed to be propagating, and that is lacking. And what's happening is that people like us sitting here are mainly da'is or maybe belonging to some organizations. But I'm very pleased that our indigenous people are represented here, because we need to go out in the rural areas more than we are doing. And talking about the king, by the way, he was very interested in Islam. I don't know if you people recall it, the Inkanjla, a huge conference that we had in Inkanjla. That was fantastic. Unfortunately, the follow-up was not there. The king himself would have accepted Islam. He was all for it. Imagine he allowed his people, he allowed us to talk about Islam to his people, his subjects. And by the way, his daughter embraced Islam, thank God. So that is where it brings me to this point about the chiefs in various areas. Let's target them because they are the leaders. And let's get to their community, civil halls or whatever they've got, civic halls. And let's do our work. Jazakallah khair for allowing me this time.
Amen. Amen. Shukran, Jazakallah, sister. Those are very insightful comments. We assure you that we have taken note of your comment. I think as a network, we are all part of the network. So let's work together. Let's try to operationalize. You see, we have been complaining for years and we have not come up with a strategy yet on how we can move forward. So let's come up with a strategy that will enable us to, to conduct dawah. Yes, to conduct dawah much more effectively, because we forget the dawah that we are supposed to conduct in our immediate communities, in our workplaces, and we talk about, oh, let's go there. But what about the dawah that you are supposed to conduct where you're working, where you're schooling? Alhamdulillah, Imam Abu Bakr Ntenje is here with his delegation. These are the lions of Islam, and we are counting on you, Imam Abu Bakr, that you're going to impart that fire on this generation of leaders to implement the solutions and the action plans that we are going to come up with today, inshallah. One more question, then we'll go for break. Sisters, brothers, we will go for a 10 minutes break just to freshen up before we invite our main speaker today. Sure. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I I want to go back a little bit, man, Sheikh. I saw one of the slide of Professor there. He was talking about religion. So us as the Tullab al-Ilm, I want to understand when we are in the field, because the slide that the one that he was talking about religion, he said major what, and then start mentioning them. He said Islam, and then he put Islam with categories. He said. So now I want to understand the aspect of the students of him when they are in the field, and then I saw he said Islam start putting something like so now when
Naam.
me have got stage fright, that's why big speak. Now, Sharon, now you see, now if we are trying to give dawah and then we find some Christians who are learned also because they are going to learn about our religion and say, which sect are you upon you? Because now I understand you're a Muslim, are you a Sufi, are you a Shia, are you a what, because I saw it today by now. So I want to understand or how can we answer that question if we give it down?
Now, the question will go to Professor Dango. He's asking, how are we going to respond when you're conducting dawah and someone who is a Christian or a Hindu is asking you, who are you? We know you're a Muslim, but who are you? Because they already know that we are divided. They already know that we have got sects. Are you a Sufi? Are you, are you a Shafi? So we just want to get a response from Prof in terms of going forward. How are we going to respond to such questions?
It's a very complicated one. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is a very complicated question, but I mean, I don't know much about dawah, but I know one of the principles is we never enter into a debate. And what you need to do is to negotiate yourself through these type of questions. So you don't ever condemn or criticize the other. All you do is you put your position forward. And you simply say, okay, that's another group. They have their way of thinking and their way of conduct and so on and so on. But from my point of view, this is what I'm teaching you. And I think what you need to do, very important, is to just concentrate on the fundamentals of Islam, nothing else, just fundamentals of Islam. Later on, the person can choose which direction he or she wants to go. But you can't go from a position that you are belonging to a certain group and you expect now the person that you're inviting should join your group. I think that's where the problem may be. So I think focus just on the fundamentals. That's all. Don't condemn the others. Simply say that is particular their way and so on. I think it's a very complicated question. I know that. But the way is actually to avoid it.
No.
To avoid it altogether.
No. Shukran, Jazakallah. I think that suffices for us. As Da'i, I don't think it's our role to to further the divisions in the Islam. It's not on us. Let's leave that to the ulama. I mean, our role is just to present Islam in its pristine form. Let's present Islam to its pristine form in the way of Professor. He says we must give the fundamentals. Once he embraces Islam, once he becomes a rivet, then we refer him to our ulama so that he can acquire detailed knowledge about Islam. But our role is to invite others to the truth of Islam. That's all. Okay, so you have to explain to the brother or sister that no, I'm just opening your eyes to the truth. Once you embrace the truth, you can pursue Islam in the manner you want. That's up to you, but this is the truth. Shukran jazakallah. A sister, last question from sister. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I just want to add on to this topic that Mufti was speaking about, that the way forward to do something different or to make da'wah a better way of doing da'wah. I just want to add, I'm a madrasa educator and I do da'wah, but I just thought of that they should, the board of trustees or whoever makes the curriculum for the madrasa, they should look at giving the madrasa teacher some lessons on how to do da'wah. Because people will come to them from time to time to ask them about Islam. Then they must be able to speak and to convey the message correctly. So they should add that in the madrasa teacher training, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. That's a very important intervention. Let's put that in our action plan today. We need to equip the madrasa teachers, the alims, ustazis. Let's equip them with, how to do dawah. Now, because they are in the middle of communities where we have lots of, Christians, non-believers, we have Hindus, and they are confronted every day. Yet they are ill-equipped. They are ill-equipped to conduct dawah. They can teach our children Islam, but to conduct dawah, that's what we lack in our communities. Can we put that in the curriculum, the training of our teachers, okay, as one of the interventions? Let's equip them with knowledge about dawah, how to conduct dawah, the methodology of dawah, inshallah. So that's curriculum development. So those who are developing the curriculums of the various training centers where we are training our madrasa teachers, let's put it in the curriculum, inshallah. I think I will request that we break for 10 minutes just to freshen up before we invite our main speaker, who is an eminent scholar from the USA, Imam Siraj Wahhaj. He's going to address us on a very important topic related to the theme of our conference today. Shukran Jazaka. Let's come back in time, in 10 minutes. I'm a timekeeper, so I will